a beautiful dinner, and we'll have some really nice music. Those of you that are sat around here, if you do want to turn around in your chairs so that you're a bit more comfortable, Tony Kerins is going to tell us all about his sketchbooks and his work, and inspire us to do a little bit of drawing. Next, Tony.
Thank you. Hello everyone. I've been asked to draw your attention to the envelopes on the table, in which there are 3 postcards, which we will come to in a moment. But if any of you just want to start spontaneously drawing, there's pencils in there as well, and we might be able to do something with them afterwards. I have one other possible idea what we might do. Well, you don't know me from Adam. Obviously I'm not from Portland. I was very pleased to be asked to put this work on here by Joe. I'm very pleased this evening to be able to speak about the drawings. Drawings, paintings, immediately, what are these? At the far end, just beyond your vision, there's a small collection of drawings that are taken directly from my sketch pads. And these sketch pads are things that I've been carrying around with me for the last 30 odd years. So if I had them all here, it'd be like that, going all the way around. And they're just handy because you can just put them in your pocket. So you get used to the idea of drawing. And getting used to the idea of drawing was something that I felt that I had to be able to do because I wanted to be an illustrator. I went to art college and this was going to be my job, illustrating. I didn't quite know what really, and most of the illustrators that I really liked were quite old even then. So people like Arthur Rackham, was working mostly before the First World War. So there was a whole, it's always been an old-fashioned thing to do, and these days it seems even more old-fashioned to do. But people still keep on doing it. I live in Swanage, and so quite a lot of the pictures on the wall are from Purbeck, and the ones that aren't are mostly from the area that I'm from, which is Lancashire, which I don't know if any of you are familiar with that part of the world. I'm from a place near Chorley. I was born in Manchester. My father's from the west coast of Ireland. I went to Manchester Art College, then went to the Royal College in London, and spent a lot of time just drawing places. Talk about places. I was once on Swanage Beach, sometime early in the 1990s, and there used to be a chap who would often be walking along there, and he had a kind of old green Barbie jacket, and he looked a bit stuffy, and his hands were in his hand. And he'd be walking along, and he'd be looking at the beach like this. And behind him, his wife, even in the 1990s, it was all fashioned. She had a headscarf tied underneath, and a mat belted at the waist, and a big canvas bag. And she'd be walking behind him, and the two of them would be like this, walking over the beach, obviously looking for something. And I noticed them a couple of times, and then I was in a position where I was able to draw. So, one thing about drawing people is, like if I was drawing you now, if I was taking someone and I set it to draw you, and we were on a train or something like that, you might notice or you might not, and if you did, I'd try and be quite open about it. I have to say that since mobile phones and photographs, it's not quite as easy as it used to be. At one time, people would be quite okay about you drawing. Not always so. People were a bit not sure about it. Anyway, this couple were walking down the beach, and it was early morning, and the sun really bright off the sea. Swanage faces east, and you'll know from various parts around the island how bright the sun can be up there. So these people were silhouetted, and they were walking along, and I was kind of following them. And I did this whole series of drawings of this couple. Did these little paintings of them. I went and asked them what were they looking for. And it turned out what they were looking for was fragments of puzzle art. And these clay pipes had been thrown out by the quarrymen. There might be something similar here. Is there anybody here that goes around the small beaches of Portland looking for old clay pipes? Because presumably there must be quite a lot out there of the old chaps throwing them down. But what struck me about the story was the idea that this beach is there and it means so many different things to different people. And for this couple, apart from they were interested in other things, but they just wanted to find these little fragments of clay pipe in all these broken pebbles and the detritus of the sea. And I thought how we were all quite similar to that, really. We're all looking for our own little bit. We're interested in some things and we're not interested in others. And there might be plenty of people coming in. I mean, Joe very kindly said that everybody was here to listen to me talk. I don't think they are really. I think they're really here for food. And I think that you kind of go into it. I remember going into the pubs in the 80s, and at that time there seemed to be a lot of Victorian engravings and things like that appearing on the walls. And they were the sort of thing that, as a student at art college, and prior to that at school, these pictures had always been looked down on as it's fine, but it's not art, it's sentimental gush. And I just was really interested in how well they were drawn. I was trying to learn how to draw, and I thought, well, I couldn't do that. And you look at some of those old engravings and the actual skill, some of them go on steel, some on wood, whatever. And there's a chap sat up here with a burrow, I think it's called, cutting away just day after day after day. Tremendous skill. And it brings me to another point about that whole thing about art, painting, all that stuff. It's a balance between skill and ideas. And it seems to me that it's constantly at the heart of what anybody is talking about when they're talking about art, whether it's music or theatre, painting. Painting now is just kind of a branch of art, because it's more than likely that if you went to art college now, the tools of your trade would be the camera, would be the lens. And one of the things about the work that I do, I brought a little painting here tonight, which of course should have been up in time for Saturday exhibition, but it wasn't ready and I didn't want to rush it. A portion of it is on this poster here, and it's called Old Cogs on Bourne-Arrow Beach. Somebody might tell me that that beach isn't called Bourne-Arrow Beach. Are you going to tell me it's not called Bourne-Arrow Beach? Because it's got a different name on the thing, but I just thought the idea of Bourne-Arrow Beach was fantastic, so that's why I've used it. And for those of you that fancy, you've got your postcard, a pencil. One of the things that interested me in those Victorian engravings was the narrative element, just storytelling. I've lived my life as an illustrator, doing pictures for stories, and in some cases writing the stories. And really, that's what I'm interested in. And I came to Portland to do some pictures for this exhibition. I'll just talk about this bit and I'll say the kind of experience that I've had. And I kind of imagined the way that it would be, because I've been here quite a few times before, I kind of knew what I expected. And I stayed with a friend of mine, and woke up the next day, absolutely sheeting down. In fact, it was sheeting down the night before. And the following day it was still raining, but it was also misty. So you just could not see anything. And I went off and got a very wet sketch back. Anyway, I subsequently came back in nicer weather. But when I was on this beach, excuse me, like this. I'd done about, I don't know, about 10 drawings that day, and I got there probably early afternoon, and there were these old cogs there. You won't be able to see anything there. It's just drawn on a sopping wet sketch pad with a biro it wouldn't really take. because the paper was soaked. And then I tried it, and I tried again. And you'll notice on these two pictures, there are no figures. You're welcome to have a look at it if you want. And what I wanted to say, I want to say two things about it. For those of you that have got pencils, which is everybody really, if any of you fancies writing a short story, or even a novel, for this piece of work, I've got the first sentence of it. Okay. If you can I say what you said, Richard? You said it looked quite sensible group. There's like a few O levels between them. You might fancy a bit of writing. It might be easy to see it on this actually. The fishermen came as I was leaving, so I can't vouch for their story. I can only show you what they told me. Okay? If any of you fancy doing that again, I'll say it again slowly. The fishermen came as I was leaving, so I can't vouch for their story. Comment. I can only show you what they told me. Semicolon, and then you can start the story. And if you want to send that, care of Jackson Gallery, I would, if you would be okay about it, I might put it on my own website, which is in the process of picking them up. But it's just that idea of whether a story can come from something. No pressure, if you fancy it, it's okay. And this picture actually should be on the wall somewhere, but just for the moment, I'll leave it there in front of you. And it is for sale. Should anybody fancy buying it? At £650. And the companion piece to it is the drawing at the far end of this was on the first day when it was sheeting down. And when I was doing this drawing, it looked absolutely fantastic. I'm a very modest person, you can tell already. But it really did look good. I had these great big black lines, and the rain was pelting down, and there were all these slashes of black. It looked great. In the middle of it, a woman was walking a dog, and she kicked me ink over. So my ink was gone. And then the whole pad, the sketch pad and everything was sopping wet. And when I opened it, that's all that was left. But anyway, in the course of this morning, I came across these chaps, and I spoke to them. I looked for any of them here. They were clearing cotton Easter, and I'd never heard of cotton Easter. And the bloke said, cotton or by Easter. And you can see from that drawing that there's not a whole lot of information in it. And you can see in the little drawings that I brought here that there's not a whole lot of information. And you can see from this picture and the painting down there and the paintings on the wall, there's a load of information in it. And I don't use photographs. I used to use photographs. Photographs used to be a part of my everyday way of working, because as an illustrator in the 80s and 90s, that's really what people wanted. They wanted photorealism, and to a large extent they still do, but the camera can do it. You know, and Photoshop and things like that are so good. But for a long time, I just wanted to move away from feeling like I was copying something. And one of the things that I don't know how many of you have been to our college, what happens when you're in the life room, or even if you say squash and draw, you end up copying shapes. There's a kind of relationship between the shapes that you see on you. I don't know the physics of it, perhaps somebody, the biology of it, somebody can perhaps tell me. The shapes that you see, you kind of record, so you get so that you train your eye to look at what those little shapes are. And you end up making this conglomeration of shapes, and if you get them all right and you get them all in relationship to each other, then you end up with a drawing of, if it's in the life room, then it's of the model room, and it's all looking really good. And I used to have this tutor who used to say, try and see the whole of the figure. Try and get the idea of the whole of the figure down. And what he was talking about. Well, I understood the words, I just didn't understand what he actually meant. If I was drawing, I'd start off at one eye, and then I'd get the other eye across in relation to it, and then I'd work the nose and the mouth and all this. And it took me a long, long time to get to the idea that you can create the idea of something. And when I'm doing these paintings, apart with very few exceptions, the ones on the wall. So the two little ferries going past the headland, there I'm just looking at the shapes, just like I described to you. Copy the shapes down. They have to be on little scraps of card like this, and then I painted them in gouache afterwards. And it's just an enjoyable exercise, it's keeping your eye on. And there's a painting up there that's done directly from life. It's just above the camera there, and that's just done from looking out of my back window. But if you're trying to draw the idea of something, you need to have the image in your head, and you're no longer copying shapes. You're trying to create the idea of something. So the sun did actually shine. I went to a place just up from here, Tilly Coombe. And the sun was really lovely. And the painting is third, is it second along, third along? Second. From that far end, I think it's second along. And I was up above this place, and I quite like looking down on places. I always have. I've always liked getting views of what you can see. And partly because you can see everything, but a lot of the time you lose that kind of intimacy. You know, if you're close to somebody, if you're kind of experiencing life. And what this place reminded me of was where I was brought up, where I grew up, and all the kids playing out. And I used to love playing out. I used to live for playing out. And I felt that there was the same kind of feeling on this picture, plus the fantastic Chesil Beach going out in the back, so visually it was really exciting. So what I've got with these drawings, which again you're welcome to look at, of themselves they're just not that fantastic drawings, but they're full of information. They might not look like it, so I'm basically drawing the structure of the place. I'm using yellow for where the light's catching. I can't actually remember now why I was using the green for. At the time, and while I was still painting it, I managed to get it there. And then I came back and tried to establish the order of what I wanted to draw. I wanted you to be able to focus in on those kids playing on the street and going up and down the hill, and the cars and the shadows and things like that. I also wanted this sense of the beach going back and the sun dropping down. And also the bay. When I put the painting up, Mark said, that's a very big ship in that bay there. Because the bay, as far as I know, might only be a couple of feet deep rather. So I don't know what we're going to do. Well, I just remember seeing pictures of old warships in it. And I like the idea of this place had once been like that. And so that's working out what it is you're trying to draw, what it is you're about, what you're trying to put down, is why I ended up doing the pictures that I did. Because all the time I was here, as I put on the poster, just conscious of these old hands, these old people. When Pop-Up Dorset was on 2 years ago, the gravestones around the back of the church are just remarkable sculptures. They're absolutely beautiful. And the feel of the whole place was just this real sense of the past that I really liked. I'm getting a bit worried that I'm talking too long. When I started doing this, I was worried I wouldn't have enough to say. But that's what happens. So, how are we doing, George? Do you want me to finish shortly? No. I've probably gone then. The one thing I wanted to talk about, which I mentioned earlier, was place. Place and time. And in one respect, my little sketchpad drawings, the keeper sketchpad, and the way of using those as a total design, using these little fragments of life. They are about where they are because I am where I am. You know, if I'm travelling or if I've got the family with me, I've had you know, a really busy domestic life, as well as you know, plenty of work to do. So these drawings have always been done in the kind of cracks of time. And sometimes you'll know yourselves what it's like with small children. It's quite nice to be able to just sit and draw them sometimes, even though they're not that easy to draw, just because it gives you a little breath of sense of your own head about what you're doing with it. So I've done lots of drawings of children, and lots of drawings of all the different things. But the idea of places, I come to Portland and I want to do some pictures of it. I want to feel like I'm responding to what I see. But at the same time, I know that everybody's proprietorial about their little bit of the world. You know, they live there because they've chosen to live there, or they've lived there because their families have lived there all their life. Or they might live there just by accident, but they've either got to like it or to hate it. But whatever else, they know it. On Saturday, we walked down onto the beach, and down there were these old bits of concrete where the old reinforced steel mesh had kind of been hit by the boulders and the rocks, and they made these kind of hieroglyphics on the surface of the concrete that were all rusted away. And I was thinking, if I was living here, I'd have done loads of drawings of that, because it's the sort of thing that I'd be interested in. But just kind of flying in and doing one lot of drawings, you can't do everything, so you only do what you can do. And I really like the sense of place, but I want the paintings to work wherever they're from. And it's one of the difficulties when you're trying to make a living as an artist. If I make a living as an illustrator, if somebody rings me up and says, can you do a book? Then as long as I can do it in quick time, that's good. It took me about 2 years. So although they paid me a good whack of money for it, by the time I spent 2 years doing it, it was not a good whack of money at all. And that's one of the difficulties of the job. But if you want to be trying to sell paintings, then usually people are interested in that subject. They're interested in that place for the reasons that I've just mentioned. So that sort of makes a problem for you, because in one respect, my painting of this is a complete flight of fantasy. You know, these figures weren't on the beach. You know, I made them up. The fishermen, I only saw them as I was leaving. They were coming on as I was coming off the beach. So they passed me. They didn't look anything like the fishermen in the book, in the painting. But the idea of them being there, and the idea of what might have gone on in the past, is just part of what you see, what you feel. So that's why they end up in the paintings. This idea of time is also part of it, because in one respect, working in a traditional way, you're inevitably seen as working in a tradition, really. I came across a sentence today in an Evening War novel. He's just been billeted in this old school, and he says, it was an enterprise neither progressive nor prosperous. I thought that is such a killing put down of this place. And to a large extent, trying to end your life as an illustrator or as a painter can be seen as neither progressive nor prosperous. But we have to keep on. And the other aspect of time is that you are trying to, especially with the keeper sketchpad things, there are moments of the present. And what I love seeing in other people's work are those expressions of their present. So I'm always interested in looking at historical pieces. You can only look at history as long as somebody has recorded it one way or another. In one, just that really, there's the idea of the future in the present when you work. I think I probably. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them now, depending on what's happening with the food. And I'm going to eat and I'll be around. And I've got to remind everybody, because I'm not told you yet, that you have to follow your feedback sheet, which is on the back of your room. So even if you don't do a drawing, and even if you don't write a short story, you don't have to do it between now and then. Please remember to follow the feedback sheet.